me and witnessing firsthand the constant attacks from kids at school and the attacks I still face today over something as natural as my hair. Now, James, to his credit, realized kind of just how freaking challenging it would be to adopt 6 or 7 kids from across the world on a very modest income that came simply from his engineering job and Micah's YouTube dollars, but she begged and she pleaded and she promised to bake him a bunch of cookies, and I only made up the cookie part because really Micah laid—
Which is like, in itself, such a big, like, what out of life as well as like just in general, like a lot. No, so much. Here, pause. Oops.
it on thick, and eventually she convinced James, which is when the milk bottle truly—
Macaroni's here.
And for the
Good old
longest
Mac.
time, Jim just, it wasn't right in his heart, it wasn't something that he was 100% ready for. And recently, a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, I had brought up the idea, and I didn't expect anything of it, and he told me, he's like, I don't
Come on. Oh, okay.
The next day I brought it up one more time, and he paused. He really waited and paused. And later that day, he said that he's interested in learning more. So obviously, me, I'm like, yes! And I know as much as we could. And then a couple days later, he told me that he's 100% ready, and he's really excited and, excited for this journey.
Oh yeah, he really sounds convinced, doesn't he? So much so that she did all the talking, telling his story of coming to realize that he was 100% on board with the adoption plan. Now maybe he's a strong, silent type, but let's go back to the beginning of this video where they make the announcement.
Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today, Jim and I have a very big surprise and secret that we want to share with you guys. There has been something that we have been hiding for about a month, and we're really just so blessed and so excited to share with you guys. Jim and I have decided that we're gonna adopt from China. We're gonna be adopting a little boy from China. We haven't officially formally started the process yet, and we do plan on taking you all with us through the journey and all of the steps along the way.
So there's a few issues right off the bat with this situation, showing that Micah and James really didn't seem to have a grasp on the ethics of adoption. To skip ahead for like just a second, Micah and James ended up adopting their child from an organization known as the World Association for Children and Parents, which later merged with an agency known as Holt International. The Cut actually interviewed Susan Soon-Kyum Cox, the Vice President of Policy and External Affairs, who said this was a bad move by Micah and James, and that one should never share info on a child's adoption prior to them actually being
I just need one more dagger.
We don't advise it. In fact, we asked them specifically not to do it. And why? Well, Caitlin Moscatello at The Cut analyzes this perfectly, stating, quote, not only can publicizing an adoption jeopardize it, but it's often seen as playing into the stereotype of white families swooping in to save foreign children. I see, I use a swoop there. I'm just kidding. But go back to it. It perpetuates the idea of lesser. And to put it my own way, there's certain degrees of what the Stoffers were doing, and we've seen other like family bloggers do this kind of thing, announcing before it happens with the adoption. It's kind of giving some savior bullshit. If I'm being honest, can I just say that? It's kind of like Micah and James were offering up their backs through the screen and expecting you to pat it for them. Like, oh, good job, good job. It's like announcing a good action being performed before the good action is even performed, which itself is performative. This rubbed experts the wrong way, but generally the move was well received by the Stoffers audience. So, what the f do I know? Now, in Micah's defense, at least in this situation, she's new to this. As a content creator myself, I understand the pressure that, social media can kind of like sometimes make you feel like you're supposed to document your life a lot for people. I used to feel a lot of that pressure until I just eventually was like, no, actually, I don't have to do that. But this is literally something she was told not to do with the adoption agency. Unfortunately, it was just the beginning of one of the strangest chapters in their story.
So we're gonna kind of look at the different avenues: private, newborn, foster care system, domestic, international. It's just a matter of there is pros and there is cons to every single adoption scenario. And we're kind of just playing out what feels right, what's organic, what makes the most sense for our family dynamic today.
Now, Micah and James eventually pivoted away from their dream of raising an African baby, and instead, at the guidance of the World Association for Children and Parents, decided to focus on adopting a baby from China. Now, it's worth noting that once upon a time, international adoptions were the hot ticket in the United States. The U.S. State Department has been monitoring international adoptions in this chart since like 1999, which shows that in 2004, almost 23,000 adoptions of international babies took place, but this number has steadily dropped every single year since then, and up until the pandemic, we saw China halt the adoption process for potential international parents, where most international adoptions adoptions in the US were from China, with over 7,000 of the 2004 adoptions alone coming from China. You see, like, if done responsibly and with healthy and good intentions and preferably some research, this can be a good thing considering the sheer amount of children in need of homes who are up for adoption in the Chinese system. But as with everything this sensitive, it comes with a major asterisk for potential parents. At least half of the kids coming from China are medically considered disabled children, or what is sometimes referred to in an educational setting as special needs children, who may require a different level of care. Obviously, it doesn't make them any less worthy of loving homes. It just means there's a different level of care, and parents should be prepared for that. Now, according to a study in Disability Studies Quarterly, quote, researchers agree that special needs adoptions from China have constituted at least 50 to 60% of all ICAs, a number comparable with the proportional rise in abandonments of children with disabilities in China. Now, I gotta give a quick sidebar. I did some research as I was of the understanding that the phrase special needs is outdated and can be considered offensive by some, but not offensive by others. So here's something I read on parents.com. Quote, the term special needs has come under increasing scrutiny over the years, and for good reason. It's a vague, euphemistic phrase that can be offensive to many people. Nevertheless, it's still used within educational, think special education, and community settings throughout the United States, and is often used interchangeably with diagnostic terms or words like disabled. The presence of a disability is not and should not be seen as shameful. The use of a euphemism in place of a diagnosis or even in place of the term disability creates the sense that there is something negative or even embarrassing to gloss over. The same sense of shame can be communicated by other euphemistic language like differently abled, handicapable, or challenged. Now, as a neurodivergent person living with chronic illness myself, I understand the delicate nuance here. I also want to carve space for educators and communities who might still use the words interchangeably. We're all doing the best that we can here, but today I will be using the word disability as much as possible, unless I'm, quoting a resource that says otherwise, okay? All right, thanks for the sidebar. Again, and I can't stress this enough, there's absolutely nothing wrong with disabled children, but it's important to note that adopting a disabled child also means adapting to the reality of the disability. Disabled children may have unique needs that neurotypical or non-disabled children do not have. This is a very real commitment parents need to be absolutely sure about before they commit to it, not just for themselves, not just for the vlog, but especially for the child. There are two categories of international adoption when adopting from China: the log-in date program that focuses on children with less intricate conditions, and the special focus program whose children have more complicated conditions. According to Micah, James made the choice very clear. They should adopt from the log-in date program. Seems simple enough, and that proceeded to be exactly what the two did not do. Instead, Micah firmly chose to go the other direction, stating in a video that, quote, let's just say there's 100 conditions. Me and my husband were comfortable with 99 of the conditions, so we were very open. My first question is, what the does that mean, Micah? Like, what the does that mean? Does this mean that you spent time thoroughly
That's a really good question, actually.
99 conditions and were mentally, emotionally, and financially prepared to do the necessary things to provide for children with 99 different disabilities? This is certainly a choice, and it's certainly a choice Micah chose to make, and if she means what she says, more power to her. On their own, Micah and James looked at hundreds of pictures of different available kids, claiming none of them appealed to her, okay? Anyways, that was until she came across one adorable boy in particular. The two of them claimed to see this boy and just knew he was the one.
Should've just grabbed that.
The agency, who told them that it was likely the medical issues with him were that he may have a brain tumor or cyst.
His diagnosis is neurological, so it pertains to his little brain. We did get some imaging done recently on our son. We got a CT scan done in China, and the neurologist and the physicians in China, they're very confident in the diagnosis that they gave us, and we were 100% confident, and we were 100% prepared for that diagnosis.
Now, the Stoffers were heartbroken but undeterred, so they took his medical records to their private doctor, who warned Micah and James immediately that, quote, this is going to be severe. This is going to be a lot. We don't know what unknown elements could be.
We sent off our imaging to our physician that's kind of been on board with Huxley. And then when she got the imaging, her optimism went down significantly. Just went drastic. She kind of almost discouraged us from adopting him, like saying that this is going to be severe, this is going to be a lot, we don't know what unknown elements could be. But for me, more than anything, immediately when she gave me another diagnosis, I looked at the bright side. I was like, that could be awesome. There could be so many good things about that second diagnosis.
So to be clear, they were specifically warned that this was going to be severe and that they chose the most difficult option for parents to take in this situation. It's not a bad decision at all if you know what you're doing and you're prepared and committed and can handle it. It's actually an incredibly wonderful decision if you know what you're doing. But Micah used this as an opportunity to make content, which is not advised. Literally, again, the adoption organization says, don't do this. And then she was warned by her doctor that this was going to be one of the single most difficult things she was ever going to face in her life, and that this was severe.
So when I heard all of the things that doctor was telling us, It kind of went in one ear and out the other. I wasn't in a state of denial. I accepted and took on everything that she said.
Again, in case I didn't make it clear enough, she was told quite explicitly this wouldn't be easy. So what did she do? Well, quote, without a doubt in our minds, we knew no matter what state he came to us, that we would love him. If anything, my child is not returnable.
And if anything, my child is not returnable, and we don't care what's wrong with him. The only need that our little boy has is he needs his mama not to be scared, but needs his mama to come on and get him home so that he can have a nice family that really truly cares about him and is not scared of what an MRI or a CT scan says. She had really freaked us out, some of the verbiage that she used and some of the things that she said, and she didn't mean to be negative. It wasn't intended to be that way, but she was just really trying to inform us, like, these are all of the realm of possibilities, and this is what I'm really thinking you're looking at, or this is what I'm really thinking that he could have, some severe delays. And for us, it was like, that's our son.
Yeah, about that. Well, we're not there yet. And maybe I mentioned in the title, I don't know yet, but I think you should remember her specific choice of words there. My child is not returnable.
He's our son, and that's that. He's not we aren't gonna trade him in, we're not gonna return him. He's our boy. If anything, my child is not returnable.
It's funny that you say that.
Over the course of Micah's so-called adoption journey, she filmed and edited a whopping 27 videos, including what BuzzFeed called a 13-part series of adoption updates. Sometimes Micah answered questions on how she felt about adopting from China. Other times she pitched a fundraiser to help her upcoming adoption with his needs, which she never specified. Can you
just need a fanny pack now.
The first thing I want to fill you in
and
on,
then
is
everything just has to be realigned.
We're going to be revealing Huxley's picture to you guys and to the world, and we're so excited
I think I
to
lose
share
this one.
our little boy with you guys. We'll have a link to the fundraiser if you guys want to donate in the description box below. But
okay, that's
each puzzle piece is worth $5. Every time someone donates, we start putting the puzzle pieces together, and every single person that donates, your name is going to go into our son's baby book.
Listen, I have feelings. Now, I don't think I could possibly cringe any harder at best, and I feel a sense of, yeah, there's anger in there, okay? My pancreas is literally having a moment. Default is to just slide into petty university. Petty is my coping mechanism for stuff when I get really frustrated with things. I'm very frustrated. But today, petty university class is in winter break, so instead the tea just, I don't know, it just spilleth over in my soul talking about what happens next. In October of 2017, the day finally Micah, James, and their 3 biological kids flew out to China to adopt the child they had chosen, and to absolutely nobody's surprise, they turned it into content. Shocking! Now, it might be hard to remember nearly 7 years removed, or maybe you weren't ever a consumer of family channel content, but content related to adoptions often refer to adoptions as a gotcha day event. So the stuff even though this is a term that adoption advocates take issue with for every logical and understandable reason you could possibly
it's a
think
weird
of,
term.
the term signifies that it, quote, commodifies the adoption process, according to the people at consideringadoption.com. Another red flag, but one that, to be fair, a huge
I would agree with
at the time. So
yeah, I can see though.
Hear this since I don't want to get hit with, like a copyright, but their video is set to an acoustic version of the song "You Set My World on Fire." It has all the emotional accoutrements you might expect: an uplifting song score, the Stoffers on the plane, Micah puts on makeup, and then they finally meet their new child, with his new siblings giving him toys as he fidgets in Micah's arms. And the thing is, this 2.5-year-old baby does not seem very happy with him, sometimes more aggressively kicking and flailing and banging his head and pinching and biting. In my opinion, literally from the start, this was not a baby that Micah should have, hear me out, exposed on the internet. But I mean, what the I know, right? Baby content is king, and this got over 5.5 million views, and people were
so wild and gross.
That the Stoffers named Huxley. People were incredibly supportive of the Stoffers move, and listen, if you're into it and you're watching the show, I can understand people being supportive because they're thinking this is a great thing. You're adopting a child who needs a good home. So I understand that. And within just the first year that they had Huxley, Micah's channel doubled to over 400,000 subscribers alone, according to Social Blade, a number that eventually skyrocketed by 2020 to over 700,000. In a 2019 interview, James called this an international turning point for the family, interesting thing to call it, where Chinese audiences in particular began asking questions like, where's the next content? Where's the next piece of this? Quote, we weren't daily at that point. We had slowed down to probably 3 times a week, and they were asking, hey, can you do daily? Can you do some more content? We want to see how Huxley's doing, how the family is getting along. It was like, wow, okay, we have something here, and people are really interested.
Yeah, because they wanted to see if you're going to do...
All right, a newly adopted disabled child who has no idea he's being filmed and exploited on the internet for views and profit. But again, what do I know? And again, maybe this could have, I don't know, leave me your thoughts in the comments right now before we get to the rest of the story. Do you think there's an ethical way that this type of thing could happen? Because again, I don't want us to just start gatekeeping all of the content in the world and say that no one can ever make content that has something to do with kids, right? Because that's not gonna help people. There are a lot of communities that can be served with watching someone's adoption journey so that parents, future parents know or have an idea of what it might be like. But how could they ethically do it? Leave me your thoughts in the comments as we continue. The Stoffers were one of the fastest rising family channels on YouTube. And what often happens when you start to get really big on YouTube? Well, you get sponsors if you're doing some business, and baby sponsors were big business. And by 2018, the Stoffers were so successful on YouTube that they bought a $670,000 home in a relatively upper class Columbus neighborhood that had a bunch of fireplaces and a bar in their basement. My gosh, I don't even own a home, and they had a whole ass basement bar. So fiddly-dee me, they bought expensive cars. They spoiled their kids. Although honestly, after hearing Sherry Frankie's very important insight as a child of family vloggers, that spoiling was potentially often nothing more than a bribe for the kids to make more content.
Many child influencers are paid for their work, as I was, and this money has helped me in my adult life. However, this payment was usually a bribe. For example, we'd be rewarded $100 or shopping trip if we filmed a particularly embarrassing moment.
Stoffers, they were living the life. They even announced at one point that, hey, we're gonna adopt another kid, ka-ching! I added the ka-ching. I don't know if they actually said that. That'd be wild if they did. Maybe be a little more self-aware. And to Micah's credit, she tried doing her research on what exactly would be the best path forward for this. Well, okay, to clarify, she did her research in the same way that, like, you know, that drunk Facebook uncle does when saying that fire hydrants are government spies wearing little yellow hats. She joined Facebook groups about adoption and became very vocal, very communicative, and very inquisitive. And something tells me that Micah didn't know just how public her Facebook comments would become someday. So if you're still holding out hope that Micah would confidently rise to the occasion, well, quote, "We are praying about adopting again, and my husband wanted me to ask what special needs would you consider minor or relatively easy to manage that most people wouldn't consider easy?" Yeah, so to put it plainly,
that's weird.
That's Micah posting
That's
in a community
weird.
forum, trying to see which disability is minor and easy to manage, but a disability
That's
that gives
weird.
the appearance of being very difficult to manage. Like, from my interpretation, and let me know if you read this differently, it quite literally seems like Micah wanted to adopt another disabled child with the performative intentions of adopting one who the general public would think is severely disabled and therefore required more care and makes her, I don't know, I guess a better mom. But in reality, behind the scenes, the child wasn't that disabled, so that her job caring for the child was relatively easy while making people think she's managing more complex care needs. In my opinion, she wanted to come off to her viewers as the patron saint of caring for disabled children, she and her husband, by the way, with complex needs because it'll boost their numbers while, you know, not actually doing that. Like, just wow. Even worse, Micah used the groups as a promotional tool, allegedly asking families to go and like her videos, particularly videos with Huxley, and to follow her, which is not exactly what these kind of groups are for, Micah.
And it gave me so much anxiety. Like, I almost had a panic attack. I don't even know what that is.
Now, a quick side note, this never actually got around to really happening for reasons that may become clear soon. Micah actually announced that she was pregnant with child number 5 and soon gave birth again. And based on this post, I can't help but wonder a very simple question. Was Micah praying for her coming biological child to be severely disabled, or is that just reserved for adopted kids? In any case, Huxley soon became the main focus of both Stoffer channels, showing cute little moments of Huxley bonding with his siblings, his first Christmas, him being a cute, precocious child, and according to Micah, an integral part of the family, as he should be, but, you know, like without the cameras still, it wouldn't be a family channel if they weren't relying on shock content. What set Micah and James apart for fans of the family was that they never shied away from the challenges that arise from adopting a disabled child. As The Cut puts it, their videos were about, quote, Huxley's medical prognosis, as well as his struggles with the apparent after effects of food insecurity, a relatively common issue for adopted and foster children who may hoard or fixate on food, communication challenges, and meltdowns. Now, imagine posting your brand new baby's meltdowns and communication challenges on the internet in exchange for sponsors and fancy cars. Now, again, I know that there are like family advocate creators and parents of disabled children who create educational content around the important topics of caring for disabled individuals, and the argument can easily be made for many of those creators, if not most or all of them, that content like that could actually be a net positive if done ethically. We discussed this, quite a bit in my last swoop doc about influencers who are faking cancer and faking chronic illnesses for clout. I highly recommend checking that out.
Yeah, we haven't watched that
Highly
one.
recommend it, okay? Oh, I had a lot to say
Watch
about
that
one. Definitely check that one
Monday,
out. But
maybe?
the key word again here is that it has to be done ethically.
I forgot about that one. We're like behind on swoop
As you can
docs.
tell by all the red flags from before,
And
Micah
T.
had absolutely
And
no
deep
qualms
dive.
whatsoever.
I like,
She was
cesspool.
expressed about putting her children front and center to make some extra cash. After Huxley's adoption and after he became the focal point of her content, Micah got sponsored by companies like, Good American, Fabletics, and Dreft, just to name a few. Her 5th child's birth was featured in People magazine for reasons. She developed a little side hustle, writing for blogs like Parade and Moms.com, where one of those blogs for Parade actually provided a little foreshadowing for old Micah here, revealing that when she adopted Huxley, his file was inaccurate. You see, he didn't have the brain tumor that they were told about. Huxley actually had a stroke in utero and was also diagnosed with level 3 autism spectrum disorder and sensory processing disorder. Now, a stroke in utero is also known as a perinatal stroke, which is, according to the Child Neurology Foundation, one of the most common causes of cerebral palsy and or other disabilities. When you combine this situation with level 3 ASD, which is a diagnosis that often results in a child who, in many cases, cannot take care of themselves. A website known as the Place for Children with Autism defines it as such, quote, ASD level 3 is characterized by severe challenges in social communication as well as extremely inflexible behavior. Children with level 3 autism will be nonverbal or have the use of only a few words of intelligible speech. Individuals with level 3 autism exhibit a marked inflexibility of behavior with extreme difficulty coping with challenges to routine. At this level, restrictive or repetitive behaviors interfere with the individual's ability to function. Changing focus from one activity to another may come at great difficulty and cause significant distress. Now, I'm referencing these resources as a starting point, but please always keep in mind that every autistic individual's experience is unique to them and no one is a monolith, and all are deserving of the same level of care, humanity, and compassion as every other human being on the planet, period. A disability will never credit a person's validity, and if you are an autistic individual, you're incredible. Period. Please don't ever believe anything less than that. Now, Huxley was also diagnosed with sensory processing disorder, and per WebMD is, quote, a condition in which the brain has trouble receiving and responding to information that comes in through the senses. Some people with sensory processing disorder are oversensitive to things in their environment. Common sounds may be painful or overwhelming. The light touch of a shirt may chafe the skin. Others with sensory processing disorder may be uncoordinated, bump into things, be unable to tell where their limbs are in space, be hard to engage in
Facial awareness.
Basically, none of these things are bad on their own, as I've been saying this whole time, and I'll keep saying, but when taken all together, it can be inferred from Micah's own words that what she got with Huxley was apparently not what she thought she was signing up for, even though she was thoroughly warned by her own medical doctor and literally told, and I quote,
She kind of almost discouraged us from adopting him, like saying that this is going to be severe, this is going to be a lot.
this would be the hardest thing that she ever does in her life, apparently, but you know, who's keeping notes? She could take on 99 conditions, but I guess this ain't one. And even still, this was far more than she ever described to her followers she was even signing up for. I mean, she was signing up for a child with a brain tumor, which, like, wouldn't that have also been challenging, Micah? Still, though, people started to notice little idiosyncrasies with Micah's raising of Huxley and James as well. Again, he's very much involved here. For instance, she used adoption hashtags on her posts incorrectly. Stephanie Dranka, an adoption advocate, told The Cut that Micah would use hashtag adopteevoice, which she said was, quote, a hashtag created by adult adoptees to center adoption stories on those who have experienced it, and that Micah started using it when she was telling the story of Huxley, and so it's not an adoptee voice. Now, to make matters worse, Huxley had trouble communicating to the point that many autism experts believe that Huxley could be nonverbal. But where everything truly began to sound the alarms for audiences was little moments like this going viral for all the wrong reasons, such as the video that I'm not going to show, where it was revealed that Micah and James were wrapping Huxley's thumb up in duct tape to get him to stop sucking it. Now, you know who else wrapped
What
their
the
children in
fuck?
duct tape? Ruby Frankie. I'm not saying that the two are the same.
That's weird. That feels very weird.
A fact. Or what about this video where she shows off some of her struggles in teaching Huxley basic words and then complains about the trouble she's having?
We've been trying to work with. Show me your toes. No, I don't want to. Look. Toes. Huxley, toes. Good job. Fantastic. Huxley, look at eyes. Here. Here. Huxley, look at my eyes. Eyes, Huxley. So that's one thing that's really, really hard is I work with Huxley every day for over 10 months, and there's so many things that he just genuinely hasn't grasped.
Or what about this video that highlights the different ways in which James speaks to Huxley versus his other children?
Here you go, sir. What do you say? Thank you. Here you go, DC. How are you doing today? Yeah. How about you, Recommend? How you doing?
The interesting part about all this, according to audiences at the time, was that these were not isolated incidents, but this was completely isolated to Huxley and Huxley alone, with nothing truly questionable ever being displayed when it came to Micah and James's biological kids. I mean, number one, that's good for the kids, but what we're talking about here is special treatment for their non-disabled children. And by special treatment, I mean their non-disabled children not being plastered all over the internet at the same rate. So go figure you would do that to your disabled child. I mean, you shouldn't do that to any of the children, but you know what I'm saying. People began to wonder what the hell was going on with this lady and her adopted child. What was with, you know, the cold attitude? What was with the freaking duct tape? So Micah mostly ignored the criticism, choosing to keep it, you know, kind of business as usual. She posted an update on Huxley's growth in September 2019 and said that ever since Huxley was diagnosed with autism, he had been in applied behavior analysis therapy. But interestingly, Huxley began to gradually disappear from the content. Actually, December 22nd, 2019 was the last time Huxley was on YouTube in a video of Micah practicing sign language with Huxley.
Say hi, guys. Huxley and I are going to run through a couple signs.
Good.
Quiet hands. Oh, good job,
I heard.
Huxley. We're gonna run through all of his signs really quick, just make sure he knows them. Down packs before we teach anything new. Show me help. Yeah. Good job. Show me eat more. Yeah. Show me eat. Oh, you did a good job. Oh,
A few months later, Huxley popped up on a now deleted post on Micah's Instagram, but again, disappeared after that. And in January 2020, Micah and Jim went on a 2 to 4 week vacation to Bali, but left behind all but their infant child, and Huxley disappearing from the picture started to sound some alarms for internet sleuths, but Micah and James stayed completely silent. It went something like this. Micah posts pictures of all of her kids, except Huxley. Fans ask about it. Micah allegedly deletes the comments, and through it all, she vlogs through, you know, typical family channel pitter-patter. It got to be almost comically bizarre just how invisible Huxley had become when on March 1st, 2020, Micah took all of her children, except Huxley, to a water park and posted a video about it. Now, on one hand, it's great. It's like actually the best thing that Huxley wasn't being filmed and exploited for views anymore, right? This is for his well-being. That's the most important thing. In the same breath, it was quite concerning for the Stoffer's subscribers. Months and months and months go by with suddenly no sight of Huxley and no explanation, leading the internet to become understandably concerned that something really truly wrong was happening. Comments flooded Micah's Instagram and slowly transitioned from curious to pissed. An account popped up on Instagram named Justice for Huxley, whose first post simply said, quote, "Micah, we are very worried about your son. Deleting IG comments and avoiding questions inquiring about Huxley and his whereabouts is extremely suspicious and worrying. We won't stop until we have hashtag justice for Huxley." And Micah didn't make the situation any better when on Mother's Day 2020, she posted about the, quote, "hardest Mother's Day I have ever had." Little did the internet know that no matter what they expected, the reality was a lot more confusing, distressing, and earth-shattering than they could have imagined.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I haven't decided.
May 26, 2020.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
What exactly was going on with their family in a video that broke the internet. It began the video like this.
So this is by far the hardest video James and I have ever publicly had to make. The reason we haven't updated you sooner is because the medical professionals, the agencies, multiple people have been allowing for Huxley to spend time with some different people to see and to make the perfect match and fit for his now new forever family. From the updates we've gotten from the agency and through the adoption agency, like they were able to place him in what they felt was literally the perfect match.
As Micah put it, this was the hardest video James and her had ever made, and if you missed the details, after having Huxley a part of their family for over 2 years, they put nearly 5-year-old Huxley through what is known as a dissolution, which is when a family decides to legally terminate the terms of an adoption. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services claims that for every 100,000 adoptions in the United States, fair, this at least wasn't some exclusively new thing that Micah and James did with Huxley, though also, to be fair, remember that quote from Micah at the beginning of this adoption story?
He's our son, and that's that. He's not we're not gonna trade him in, we're not gonna return him. He's our son.
Yeah, so much for that. To put it simply, they returned him. So, why the dissolution? Why did they return him? Well, they say Huxley was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, level 3, said to be the most severe kind of autism, and that Huxley had a below average IQ to the point that he not only may never go to college, but allegedly could never be potty trained.
So, I mean, you guys have been part of this adoption journey even before, you know, we picked up Huxley throughout the whole process. And, you know, with international adoption, sometimes there's unknowns and things that are not transparent on files and things like that. And once Huxley came home, there was a lot more special needs that we weren't aware of.
Michael calls this hard to stomach, and James follows up by saying there was a degree of deception in Huxley's adoption as well, even though she was thoroughly warned by her own medical doctor.
And then when she got the imaging, her optimism went down significantly. Her prognosis and everything for our son just went drastic. She kind of almost discouraged us from adopting him. But for me, more than anything, immediately when she gave me another diagnosis, I looked at the bright side. I was like, you know, that could be awesome. There could be so many good things about that second diagnosis.
They put Huxley in preschool and gave him upwards of 30 hours a week of at-home therapy.
Anything that happened in the home that was hard for Hux, that's not fair for me to put out there publicly. That's his privacy. So we're not gonna talk about that. That's not appropriate.
Huxley has had multiple meltdowns.
I'm not having a good day today.
We never tell you guys the truth. And that's why you don't see Huxley a lot in the vlogs. He's probably having a meltdown. Are you done?
He's just having a bad day. He's a grumpy day today.
They say that because of all of this, Micah and James had their hands so full that when Huxley would have what they described as a tantrum, they would be unable to vlog. Imagine that. They weren't able to
darn.
display a disabled child or maybe the rest of their children for views. Too bad, so sad.
Are you done?
He's just having a bad day. He's a grumpy day today.
Now, listen. I hate
my
everything
God.
about this, but I'm also going to
Oh
try
my
to
God.
be fair and look at this from multiple perspectives because I'm not one to want to live in an echo chamber. We do that often in a swoop doc. We look at multiple perspectives, even if that echo chamber is the sweetest, most joyous symphony chamber orchestra in the world. In the video, Micah and James level it out as transparently as I guess they can. Caring for Huxley was much more than they bargained for.
And once Huxley came home, there was a lot more special needs that we weren't aware of and that we were not told.
According to them, Huxley's needs were never fully explained during the adoption process, which isn't entirely true. You literally said you were warned. Don't make me play the damn clip again.
So when I heard all of the things that doctor was telling us, it kind of went in one ear and out the other. I wasn't in a state of denial. I accepted and took on everything that she said. And I sat down with Jim. I said, worst case situation, if our little boy at one point in his life, he needed to be in a wheelchair and he needed full on care, would you still love him? And we, without a doubt in our minds, we knew no matter what state he came to us, that we would love him. And that's one thing that I'm starting to love about this process is the level of becoming more humble, and the level of unconditional love that we're starting to develop for this little boy is just unbelievable, and I love that.
But go off. This is Fair Swoop talking right now. So they held off on reporting this to their viewers, even though it was nearly 4 months in planning that brought them to this point, because they claimed, are you ready for this? They wanted to protect his privacy. I am livid, okay, live it in a fair and balanced sort of way. Okay, we're staying balanced, we're staying fair. Perspective.
We haven't made this video yet, and it's because we've been trying to protect his privacy, his rights.
The family channel that became successful because of posting publicly in excruciating detail every effing ounce of the adoption and meltdown and diagnosis of Huxley wanted his privacy to be protected. Right. Now, listen, I am a fair and learned woman. Some may call me a learned bitch. So, I mean, on one hand,
I love her so much.
I do empathize to a degree with what Micah and James are saying.
Yeah, apparently not. Apparently
Aside from
not.
the fact that they were warned about this very thing happening and ignoring that warning, and aside from the lip service Micah gave to how Huxley was not just the kid they adopted, but her actual son now, blah, 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 blah. The truth is, if all of this is indeed somehow true, then even though she said they were comfortable with 99 of the 100 conditions, it certainly sounded like it was a lot more than this allegedly well-meaning / monetized / I'm having a really hard time believing everything they're saying couple was capable of taking on. And at the end of the day, if parents are not equipped or able or financially able or willing or whatever, or educated, if they're not in a place to provide the care that a disabled child needs, I don't want that child to be forced to stay with those parents if there truly is a better option for the child. Now notice I said I don't want the child to be forced, because in my opinion, the child is really the only thing that matters here, right? We can reserve a little sympathy for the parents, because I'm sure this wasn't fun, and we gotta be human, they're human, we're gonna be human. But the child is what matters most. And that's really the best I got for the parents. They were warned multiple times. They chose the hardest option on purpose for content. I would feel differently if they were just, like a regular family who got in over their heads and were truly not the best fit for the child. I could understand that. It would be very sad on all ends, but I can understand that. And, and then they found a better family for the kid because, again, as we know, it happens around 5% of the time. I don't want to stigmatize parents who have found themselves in this position, because nobody wins if we just, shame all the parents in this position, and I can't stress that enough. I actually wish more parents of dissolved adoptions spoke up and didn't face, mass ridicule, because their experience could be so important for other potential adopters to learn from and understand just how serious all of this is before making this life-changing, beautiful decision to adopt. Micah and James, they're different because they built nearly their entire brand off of this adoption before it even happened, for views, money, clout, spreads in People magazine, and that's what frustrates me. That's what frustrates me the most. It's not, just the disillusion of Huxley and the adoption that gets to me. Again, if that's in